It's like the first day of school, you know. There is that level of excitement. They really start to reveal themselves when you get in real football-like conditions, and that's what tomorrow signifies for us. You feel the energy out here, man. These guys been playing football all their lives, man, and it's a very normal thing for them. They're excited about it. They've trained for a long time to put themselves in this position, so it's like the first day of school, you know. There is that level of excitement.
I hope everybody picked out their best outfit for the first day of school today. Welcome inside Heinz Field, everybody, to Training Camp Live presented by FedEx, where Now Meets Next. I'm Missi Matthews, once again joined by Craig Wolfley, and it is such a great sight to see Steelers Nation here, and not to undermine the fact that the Steelers are wearing pads today, Wolf. How would you describe it? Coach Tomlin said first day of school. What's your analogy for today?
You know, the first thing I thought about is it's not Monday, it's not Tuesday, it's Pads Day, baby. That's what you think about, because you know you're about to put the pedal to the metal, and this is where the rubber meets the road, and as Coach Tomlin said, this is where guys start to separate themselves.
I have to say it was very exciting. I got excited whenever you saw Steelers Nation racing to be the first one to get as close as possible to the field. There are COVID protocols, so they're keeping fans 20 feet away from the players. No autographs, not the usual things that we see at training camp. But people have come from all over the place. Well, if this is not something that is unusual, to Steelers training camp. So just a great sight to see them there ready, and they're all holding up their signs and where they're cheering from. Mexico, Virginia, Texas, just to come watch the Steelers practice. I love our fan base.
There's no question about it, Missy. You see them from all over when you go to Latrobe. Well, here we are in downtown Pittsburgh. I mean, the North Shore virtually. And you've got people, I met people on my way in from Florida. You know, they're just, who goes from Florida to, you know, the great Northeast during the summer? You're supposed to be down there on the beaches. But no, they're coming up. They want to and are excited about the Steeler training camp here at Heinz Field.
All right, Mike Prisuta is out on the Ford fan zone, so we want to bring him in now to get his take on what the excitement level is like inside Heinz Field. Mike, can you hear me? And what's going on in terms of the energy? We're inside, so tell me what's happening outside.
Well, before we go there, Missy, you got to ask me how I'm feeling today, because I'm going way past first day of school. To sum up my emotions today, I want to take you back to 1993. There was a movie made right here in the city of Pittsburgh called Striking Distance. And one of the actors, Tom Sizemore, played a guy named Detective Danny DeTillo. And in a scene filmed right across the river at Point State Park, he was at the policeman's ball, and he jumped up on a table and he screamed, "Best day of the year! It's better than Christmas!" That's how I'm feeling.
All right, Prisuta is bringing his A game. I like it. Have you had a chance to talk to any fans, or just what are you seeing in terms of them knowing that the players are they're out on the field now, they're getting ready to start warming up and getting ready for the first day in pads, which is always an exciting day?
You know, I can see the east stands filling up with regularity. I got to the stadium about 20 to 1 today, and my dashboard thermometer said it was 90 degrees, and there were all kind of people outside. I think I saw your guy from Texas. He was in front of me coming across the Duquesne Bridge. I can tell he was a Steeler fan because on the window above that Texas license plate was a huge Steelers helmet. Parked in the media lot, and Jenna Harner from Channel 11 was there, and she was doing interviews with fans. I heard a lot of "Steeler Nation, this is great, baby, yeah." You know, it's high energy, as Mike Tomlin might say.
All right, I like to see it. All right, so they are in pads, Prisuta, which is just exciting in itself. So what are you looking most forward to today, knowing that it has been the ramp-up period of what we've seen so far in training camp, and today maybe some guys can distinguish themselves a little bit?
You know, Missy, there's a lot of things on my short list, but I got to say that the tight end position has vaulted to the top of the list thanks to Eric Ebron yesterday. That address he gave the media after practice, talking about the tight end room and about how the new mantra is that they're going to block badass, run badass routes, and score on anybody in badass way. That was the talk. We'll see if they can do the walk. Eric Ebron also talked about his own game, and he said, quote, "I changed my attitude about it. I need to be a full-on tight end." Now, those words, I'm sure, are music to everyone's ears, the coaches included, but let's see if they can do it. Pat Freiermuth, the second-round pick out of Penn State, he's gotten a lot of attention and generated a lot of enthusiasm with the way he's caught the ball. He was very upfront speaking after Ebron about how that's only half the job. He's got to block D ends and linebackers. And then there's Zach Gentry, who is transforming his body, and he was a big kid when he got here. He looks like he's bigger now. Can he use that to his advantage? Everybody's got to block, particularly when you draft a running back on the first round. But the tight ends, I think there's a lot of room for growth there when it comes to blocking. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, for sure. And knowing what Kevin Colbert told us yesterday in terms of what he says to Pat Freiermuth, hey, good catch, but can you block? That's something they'll be able to, see firsthand today with the pads on. But going back to Zach Gentry, I thought it was interesting. Eric Ebron was asked about him yesterday and kept saying he's 6'12" in terms of his height and just how big he is and getting used to that body. I do think so much has been made about Pat and Eric respectively, but Zach Gentry is one of those guys I think a lot of people have forgot about. What do you think? Yeah,
I would agree, and I think he's taking steps toward rectifying that situation. And when Ebron says 6'12", he knew that's a 7-footer, and Gentry isn't quite a 7-footer. But what he was talking about is understand you're big. He called them abnormal compared to not just tight ends, but people in general. So use that. Have that attitude that you are bigger and badder than everybody else, and you're going to do what you want to do because you can. And, that just falls in line with what we've heard from Adrian Clem ever since he took over the offensive line. They want physicality. They want nasty. They want aggression. It's kind of a ripple effect throughout that offensive side of the ball. The first step toward running the ball is to get determined enough to do it, and do it the hard way when you got to do it that way.
I'm not sure, Triv, if you caught Alfredo Roberts yesterday, the Steelers' new tight ends coach, but he also talked about that physicality, something that Adrian Clem has been preaching this entire offseason and just what he's bringing. You mentioned what Ebron said in terms of what they consider their room. Was there anything else you took away from getting a chance to hear from pretty much a lot of tight ends and coaches yesterday?
Yeah, I want to give you one other little anecdote, and Mike Tomlin, thankfully, talked about this in length. There was a pass play that I noticed, and it was Chase Claypool being guarded by Cam Sutton, and it was an out along the sideline, and Tomlin happened to be standing just out of bounds right in front of the play, and Cam Sutton jumps the route and looks like he's going to get the interception, but Chase Claypool doesn't want to concede the interception, so he somehow angles himself and gets his hands in there, but Sutton doesn't want to give the ball up, and they're twisting and circling, kind of interlocked, and there's 4 hands on the ball, and it went on for a fair amount of time relative to how long it takes for most normal such plays to complete themselves, and they both end up falling down and the ball hits the ground. But Tomlin really reacted, and I asked him why he did that afterward, and he talked about how they want a competitive environment out here, but they're not going to get it unless everybody is engaged. You got to do your part. You got to show up. You got to play every play. When you got a chance to make a play, you got to make one. You can't concede anything, and it was the kind of two-way competitiveness between offense and defense. If they can replicate that, they're going to be way ahead of the game. So that really stood out to me. And hey, in the grand scheme of things, it was a late July incompletion, but kind of planting a seed. I want to see some more of that stuff all over the field, Missy.
All right, Triv, I got to ask, were you the one that asked Coach Tomlin yesterday if we'll see some backs on backers today?
I did not. That was Jerry Dulac. He asked Jerry if he wanted to compete in that. Jerry said
yeah.
no. Jerry's trying to get over a little knee surgery. Had he asked me if I wanted to do it, I'd have said hell no.
I think Wolf would have jumped in. All right, we do have a fan question for you, and you're kind of leading us towards some secondary discussion, bringing up Cam Sutton and Chase Claypool. This one is from Steve Triv. He said, not really a question, but I want to know more about the secondary in terms of Sutton, Pierre, Lane, and also undrafted free agent Brown.
Okay, well, let's start with the desire for Cam Sutton to play outside. Terrell Austin, the senior defensive assistant, talked about that a couple of days ago. The nickel right now is Antoine Brooks, followed by Arthur Mollett, and we're going to see how that plays out. They would like to leave Cam Sutton on the outside if they have to move him inside, or if they decide they want to move him inside because either Justin Lane or James Pierre play so well, they look like they could get some package through the outside, that's an option as well. Shakur Brown went undrafted. A lot of people in and around Michigan State thought he would get drafted. He's not the biggest, he's not the fastest, but boy, he had a knack for getting his hands on the football last year, so I wouldn't count him out, Missy.
Michigan State, I knew you'd bring it up somehow, some way, right?
I didn't bring it up. I was just answering a question from an obviously astute fan.
Okay, Trev. Well, I heard Steelers Nation cheering a little bit. They must be transitioning to a next portion of practice. I think this is special teams, but the warm-up will come and then the competition period, which everyone is looking forward to. I know you are as well, so I will let you take your place wherever your viewing area will be to watch some of that go down.
Appreciate that, Missy. Wolf, Merry Christmas, guys.
Merry Christmas. Okay, Trev, thanks so much. All right, well, not that your excitement wasn't up here, but I think Prisuta updid you just a little bit.
You know, he was definitely energetic and excited, and I got to say, good for him. You're out there, you can feel the heat, you can feel the excitement, and by golly, when you get down close enough, there's some of that testosterone coming off the field, and every male sits there and goes, boy, I'd like to be out there with him, unless, of course, you're like me, you say you're old, and go, no, I don't want to be out with him.
What does the first day in pads signify to players, knowing that there is a ramp-up period and every team's going to go through it, as we have continued to say, but just putting them on and knowing that there is going to be a little more excitement or competition and maybe a chance to prove yourself at practice?
The key is what you just talked about. Chance to prove yourself. The big thing is about this. You start to separate yourself from the other guys in your room. And this is all about making a statement of who you are as a man. Your manhood's going to be tested. You know, this is about who you are as a player, because, you know, your playing skills are going to be tested. And this is about where you go from that first stake you drive in the ground to the next level when you want to be able to show that increase in skills day in, day out. As you're getting better, you're working your craft, and that's really what it's all about. It's putting your foot down and saying, this is who I am, this is where I start, and then where do you go from here?
All right, I do want to mention, because I can see it in the back of your shot on the Steelers scoreboard, Ben Roethlisberger is here at practice. Coach Tomlin did say he was excused yesterday for a personal reason. Back here today, as you see him there with the Steelers' first-round draft pick, Najee Harris. Just a guy, Wolf, just seeing them practice on the south side, you see this a lot where he's picking Ben's brain. We've heard from his position coach, Eddie Faulkner, this offseason saying that the only problem with Najee is that he has no off switch. Sometimes they're telling him, go home, watch Netflix, watch a movie. You don't have to sit here and watch film and always be preparing for football. But I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing when you want somebody to be so ingrained in what is hopefully an improvement in the offense. You know,
to quote Mike Tomlin, I'd rather have to say whoa than giddy up. And that you might have to sit on him a little bit, because he's one of these guys that is so engrossed in getting better and doing the very best that he can. But it's like I said, you want those guys that show you they're capable of all this work, and then they're going to just by sheer desire alone, their efforts out there, they're going to be better, and you're going to see it. But at the same time, you got to learn this is what it's like to be a pro day in and day out, and you've got to have the ability to get your prehab, your rehab, your lifting, all those things that keep the body tuned up, ready to go, and that will be part of the really the learning trip of Najee Harris.
Now, I know I said this yesterday because on the last edition of the Standard, Coach Tomlin was telling Najee Harris and Devin Bush that's a matchup he would like to see. I'm not so sure Devin Bush will participate in backs on backers. Maybe. I have no inside information. But for Najee Harris, the rookie running back, first day in pads, who do you think Coach Tomlin will match him up with today?
Well, I mean, it could be rook on rook. I mean, it could be Buddy Johnson, and it could be Najee Harris. I got a feeling, though, he's going to cut loose maybe a Robert Spillane or one of those guys, maybe UG3 on the inside, or maybe he could be picking up one of those guys like Melvin Ingram. You want a taste full of what the NFL is all about. Hello, Mr. Ingram.
He knows a thing or two.
TJ Watt? Yes, exactly. So it could be a TJ Watt. Whatever it's going to be an introduction to this young man, and he's going to make a statement about who he is. And I got a feeling he's going to do well in showing who he is.
Okay, I want to pick your brain and just a little bit about the competition period. But when I saw Ben and Najee, I just had to mention it. My attention was drawn to it. But I want to go back to the tight ends. I know Prisuta talked a lot about it yesterday, about what they said yesterday. But I do want to take a listen to Eric Ebron, a portion of his availability. So here it is.
Ben's starting to understand what kind of route runner I am, what kind of player I am, and how I like to get open. And I'm starting to understand how he likes to throw people open. So it's it's definitely coming along. And I like Ben. I like him. I like his aggression. I like who he is. So I'm going to continue to be a pet peeve to him, and hopefully he enjoys it. I just want to understand him, and when we're in situations and when we're in tough spots like he is with Juju, I want him to know that I got his back as well.
All right, so Eric Ebron, we know last year when the Steelers picked him up during free agency, the first time he came to Pittsburgh, he stayed at Ben Roethlisberger's house, tried to get acclimated to the Steelers offense, and it sounds like even now during the second training camp he's having with Pittsburgh, he's being a pet peeve, as he called it, to Ben Roethlisberger. He wants to be that guy that he can rely on when he needs him. How is that relationship built between quarterback and offensive weapon, Wolf?
You know, it's an important relationship to have, because a lot of times you go by instinct. Once you get off of the route being run, then it breaks down a little bit. You got the plaster coverage taking over, and you got to know where that man's going to be. You got to know what that guy is thinking, and you have to know whether your quarterback is thinking, okay, you're going to be at the yardsticks, or are you going to be, somewhere on the other side by the numbers. Whatever the route is, and whenever the routes may break down, you want to make sure that you are fully where the quarterback expects you to be. I give you Super Bowl 43, that touchdown drive. Ben was scrambling, ducking guys, the Cardinals, and he comes up and he throws to Heath Miller right by the first down marker. And I remember asking Bruce Arians the next day, I said, did he know he was there? And he said, yes, that's part of the route. When the route breaks down, he heads to the first down marker, and Ben found him after ducking a couple of dastardly Cardinals trying to do him harm. So the fact of the matter is, you've got to have that mind meld and understand what the quarterback is looking at, then be where you're supposed to be.
Eric Ebron also talked a lot about the blocking and just how it was subpar last year for everybody. He included himself as well and said he took it very seriously this offseason. How do tight ends get better at blocking?
The way you get better at blocking is to block more. It's very simple. The thing about it is, and I do believe this is going to be important, because Adrian Clem has come along and he uttered the word demeanor, which is a modern day euphemism for, let's say, 80s style football. Coming off the ball, yes, old school. Coming off that ball and doing as we did back in the day, where at the point of attack, you were rolling back the line of scrimmage. That's what you want to see. That's what you want to get after. I do believe that Ebron, and I believe that Freiermuth, Kevin Rader is another guy that can block very well, and you hope that Zach Gentry also, because of his 6'12", I still haven't figured the math on that one, but I did flunk math twice. But, somebody that big, you've got to make sure you bend the knees and get after it, and you drill it, whether it's on the sled, whether it's on the dummies that you hold, things of that nature. But then you've got to get some live work at it, and you just got to stay consistently after it.
All right, we're taking a live look down at the field. There is the rookie tight end you were talking about out of Penn State, Pat Freiermuth. He spoke as well yesterday, so let's take a listen.
Yeah, I was drafted because I could do both things. Obviously it's kind of hard to show that you can block with helmets on. My job is to make catches, and my job is to, block the ends and block linebackers, and I know that. So, I've had a good first couple of days of camp, but I know the real work starts tomorrow when the pads go on, and I got to prove that I can go out there and block the ends.
And Wolf, you mentioned it yesterday. He did prove that in college. He will have a chance with the pads on. And as you saw just previously before we went to that soundbite, Ben Roethlisberger grabbing his pads after warming up without them. So I'm sure we'll hear the fans cheering, knowing that Ben is going to partake in practice in some form or fashion today.
No question about it, but you can bet he won't be in backs on backers.
No, he's definitely a spectator to backs on backers, which I think is the best for everybody involved.
No question about it, because I wouldn't want to be out there either.
What will it be like for you today, the competition period? I know you are usually as close as you can humanly get to those drills. So how will you be observing today, just from a little bit of a different vantage point?
One of the things I want to see, for instance, the young guys, all right? You don't know really too much about them. Kendrick Green, Dan Moore, these are rookies. One of the things that I want to see is how they react to some of the individual drills. When let's say things don't go your way, all of a sudden maybe you get whooped, right? You're out there and offensive line, defensive line doing a drill, and there's some chirping going on, and you're out there with all your peers, and there's a lot of pressure, and some guys react negatively in the sense the next rep up, They will do anything they can, whether it's tackling the guy or however, or is he going to stay with his technique and not be overwrought by the fact that, I got embarrassed by this guy and don't want to lose 2 in a row. Do you stay with that technique? I think the story the other day, Marquise Pouncey with Ziggy Hood, and he got whipped on the first pass rush, but he stayed with his technique. He didn't lose his calm demeanor, and he came out and whooped Ziggy on the next one. That's what I want to see. How do you represent yourself when things go a little awry?
The tight ends are waving at somebody. It must just be the fans. I don't know if they have family in town, but you can tell they're just warming up but having fun. I'm sure it's great for them to know that they're not just looking at an empty stadium.
No question about it. Missy, we know what it was like a year ago when we had a game here with nobody in the stands and the awkwardness of TV timeouts and listening to coaches yell at their players on the field, which the coaches on the opposite sideline could hear. And here you are, you've got a little feedback with the fans, and you know that the Pittsburgh fans, the Yinzers, are like eating this up, and the players, you feed off that. You know what I mean? Yeah, you come out and you want to put on a good show for the fans and get after it a little bit, and that competitive spirit is part of creating that competitive atmosphere that exists right here at Heinz Field.
Another thing that Pat Freiermuth said yesterday, you saw Eric Ebron, waving, dancing. That's more of his demeanor. Pat Freiermuth said, I'm a rookie. I just come in, I do what I'm told. I don't talk a lot. And I know that's something you probably appreciate for rookies.
No question about it. I mean, Gadzooks, when we were rookies, Tunch-Ilkin was dancing all the time. I mean, the guy said, come on. No, really, that didn't exist back then, way back when. And you enjoy the fact that you got guys that take their work seriously, that they understand their place too. One of the things I told my brother Ron Wolfley when he was going into his rookie year in '84 with the Cardinals, I told him, I go, you know what? Just keep your mouth shut. You're a rookie. You got nothing to say. Just keep it zipped and you'll be fine. And that was one of my big advice to him.
All right, I know you mentioned some young guys in terms of the Steelers' offensive line, but we did have a fan question that was submitted that I picked out for you, talking about some young guys. So this one is from our friend Heather, friend of the show. Other than who you mentioned, is there a young guy you're excited to see today now that the pads are on?
There's several, and we'll leave the young bucks in the offensive line alone. One of the guys I'm excited to see is UG3. I want to see if we can finally see that materialization of some of the great skills and attributes he's got. He's had trouble with injuries. He's had issues there. I want to see the Buddy Johnson on the inside. Yeah, you want to see a little bit of Mel Ingram, but you've got somebody solid there with his NFL repertoire behind him. But there are these guys that I want to see so very bad. And the other one is, I want to see Chase Claypool as he begins his ascent to this number 2 year. I think there is, in the words that they used last year, so much more meat on the bone with this guy. I'm excited to see what he can do because obviously, aside from the Najee Harris, this is a guy who I think has got more offensive firepower tucked away inside him than we've yet to see.
And the wide receivers are an interesting group. I know we're going to have plenty of show and plenty of time to talk about them, but just the depth that is there, the playmakers that are on there that we have seen prove themselves. And as you said, the year 2 jump for the guys like Chase Claypool, Kevin Dotson, Alex Highsmith, that is such a unique group, and we'll get a chance to see that this preseason, something they have not experienced yet in the NFL.
Year 2 is so very important for these guys. Think about it. They didn't have any preseason games. That's going to be part and parcel of the development of the young bucks. Again, having that opportunity to have 4 preseason games and being able to upgrade their skills as they prepare for the upcoming season, that's ginormous. I know this. I could have never made the team that I made in 1980 were it not for the 4 preseason games that I had the opportunity. You need that chance to get in front of a live crowd, to get settled down and to work your craft and then show that improvement week by week by week. That's what's important. That's what they need.
There we see the camera down on the field here as the players are warming up for the first day in pads. Juju Smith-Schuster tested free agency, ended up signing a deal to come back to the Steelers. What do you expect him to bring to this offense?
Oh, I think he's going to bring a lot of joy, a lot of happiness. That only a wide receiver who had 9 touchdown catches. I say he gets double digits this year. I think he plays some of the slot, but he wants to be on the outside. I think he's calling for the ball more and being the veteran that he is. I think he's one of these guys that is going to make a real difference. And the point is, with Chase, you hate when you get caught in one of those moments, But Chase Claypool is a guy that can make his life easier and better. And I think you have a situation where somebody like Chase, with his speed, size, and everything, is going to be able to enable Juju to be able to get many more completions than he had last year.
All right, pads are on, competition period. I'm using that term very generically. What does that mean in terms of what you anticipate seeing here? Backs on backers is the one we always talk about.
Right.
But what else happens when it's a competition period in the first day in pads?
Well, you also have an opportunity to match your skills in pass protection. You'll see the hogs going on with the defensive linemen. And one of the things that's interesting is how do they let them run the pass rush? Part of rushing on the pass rush, back in our day, we used to call it Highlander. You know, after the Highlander movie where there can only be one, you know, because there would only be one guy left standing. They let that whistle go so dadgum long, it seemed like you were on a pass protection for forever. Well, they're a bit quicker with it, and one of the things I think it does, it hampers the offensive linemen's develop a little bit because pass protection is probably 50% is recovering from a bad position. And you need to be able to experience that and work your way out of it. And those elements I think are big. I think you're going to see them as they go about their business today and doing it. I also wonder if there's going to be a tackling period. Mike Tomlin, every now and then he seems to throw in some serious tackling. So I'm anxious to see what that happens today.
The skill guys too, wide receivers and DBs, what do you typically see from them whenever it's a competition period and the pads are on?
Well, they start sometimes with the blocking, the stock blocking. So you get the wide receivers, and the first thing you want to see with wide receivers, is there a willingness to go after a guy? You know, do we have any Heinz Wards here? Do we have any of these guys who want to get after one of those defensive backs? Because defensive backs will, you know, they're always they're the jabbermouth tough guys. They'll let you know they're tough, and they'll stand up and they'll tell you all about it. And then you got the wide receivers who we used to think of as China dolls, you know, kind of like the divas of the NFL. So it'll be interesting to see if they come off and do some of the things that they're capable of doing, such as Juju showed himself to be a pretty good stock blocker. James Washington's another guy who would go after it. Chase Claypool is a guy, you know, is good physical and go after it. So as they move along and display their skills, I would expect to see some very competitive periods with the offense or the wide receivers and the defensive backs.
Are players prepped for what will happen for the first day in pads, or is this something where you kind of just go to practice and you go with the flow and you might not know necessarily how Coach Tomlin likes to run a practice like this?
Well, I would say this. When you go out there with the rest of them, you flip that inner switch. And that nice guy in you, if you have a nice guy side, suddenly is not so nice anymore, because now you realize this is really about making a living. If you want to make a living, this is about coming out and stating who you are, and you do that by good, crisp, hard hitting and showing everybody you're capable. And that's one of the things I think young guys got to be able to understand. You come out here, this is not like at college where you've got maybe out of, you know, the top 22 guys, you've got legitimate 6-8 guys. Everybody here is good. Everybody is really good and at a pro level. So you've got to have that mindset to come out and practice with a pro mindset, which is to get better each and every day. And there's a little bit different when you're paying your mortgage versus going to class. There's a whole world of difference in it.
No doubt. All right, we are taking a live, wide look at Heinz Field now. We heard the horn that Guy always blows. It doesn't sound as loud indoors as it usually does when you're down on the field. But the Steelers are moving into their individual portions. So, Wolf, I'll just kind of let you take us through what you're seeing down on the field right now.
Right now, you can see where the linebackers are rallying together and some of the defensive linemen. And all they're doing is just getting their takeoffs ready. You can see where one of the assistants is holding a football and they're going to do takeoffs.
Denzel.
Is it Denzel?
Yep.
Okay, your eyes are better than mine. So you look at the ball and they're going to move the ball. And what they want to do is who can get the quickest takeoff. Think about it. Bud Dupree for years was one of those guys who reacted so quickly. That first step was just prominent in his pass rushing capabilities. Well, this is how you develop it. They go through and they put the ball there and they have somebody calling a count, and you're simply making sure that each and every defensive lineman is keeping his mind and eyes on the ball and not being swayed by the voice inflection of whoever's giving the snap count or anything else. See the ball, key the ball, and then as soon as that ball's moved, you move.
And I just turned around. I can see a little bit better. Maybe you'll see him in one of these shots, but Coach Tomlin is down there. I feel like he always gravitates towards this individual portion first for some reason.
Yes, indeed. Well, he wants to see who's got the quick takeoff. You know, one of the things that I love and one of the things I hate about being up here rather than being able to be on the field, as we were, say, at St. Vincent's, is walking around and being within earshot of Mike Tomlin. Because you get some of the greatest coaching tips going if you just follow around and listen to him. There's a wealth of information, whether he's talking about how to, on the slant, if you're a corner and being able to change your footwork, or whether it's backpedaling or quick takeoffs, key the ball. You know, there's just a number of things that he talks about that are great coaching tips, and you just pick them up as you move about. And one of the things I notice is just like Chuck Noll, he's capable of coaching anything, anybody. You know, with transitioning the defensive backs when they're running in man coverage, you say, locate the ball, you know, and you hear them reach for the hands, and just coaching tips like that, they're just huge, and you appreciate it.
All right, well, if I'll let you call it the next position group you want to go to take a live look at their individual warm-ups.
Well, let's watch the kickers like get suntanned or something, right? No. You know, I would love to see what the wide receivers are doing. Early on, they've got to be probably doing some warm-ups that's catching the ball and things like that, which we used to do before practice. I jumped in the line as a rookie one time while running go routes with Terry Bradshaw, who lobbed one and it bounced off my helmet, and he fired me from the line. I was not permitted to run with the wide receivers anymore. So, you know, seeing these guys, you got them right here in front of you, and you take a look, and you know what? This is a group that's got some awesome performers. Now, who's going to start to elevate their skills to a higher level? Deontay Johnson, you know, you talk about his off season, how he worked with a tennis ball and, you know, with a thing that would shoot the ball at him. That's pretty dedicated, you know. Does it increase his abilities? We'll see. We're going to find out. Chase Claypool, you know, again, I look at him and I think there's just so much for him to be able to come out and really dominate with his physicality. And Juju's another guy. You've got some really physical wide receivers who are capable of doing long ball stuff, and I hope we see more of it.
A lot of times, too, during the individual period, we will see the wide receivers with the running backs. Ball security, I think, is always a theme that Coach Tomlin likes to preach
Yes.
to his guys on offense.
No question about it. You know, I mean, you want to make sure that you're always, as you can see right here, they throw the ball. Now, wide receiver will run back and forth through all those things. Now, catch the ball. Does he tuck it? See, right there that separates the pros from the not so good pros. The guys that catch it and tuck it. And right there, Chase, he's missing an opportunity to just put that ball away and get that muscle memory, snap that ball down and protect the ends. And I think, you know, I know that he'll grow in his opportunities as he, you know, gets more mature and everything else. But one of the things I always noticed about Antonio Brown was his repetition and muscle memory was outstanding when he worked the drills. And for each wide receiver, that's what you want to do, is make sure you're working the muscle memory.
All right, there you see Eddie Faulkner rolling out that red medicine ball. Looks like he has something up his sleeve as everyone's kind of regrouping a little bit as they're still warming up here. What about Benny Snell? I feel like that is also somebody, you know, you draft Najee Harris, 24th overall. I think you know what the Steelers want to do with him, but Benny Snell may be somebody who we've seen in spurts, but not consistently.
Exactly, and consistency is the one thing that really stands out about Benny, what we have not seen. You can see some of the things that he does, and he'll do it in sporadic briefs, whether it's picking up the linebackers or running pass patterns or carrying the ball and making good decisions. But we want to see it on a regular basis, and that's what it takes to be an NFL running back at this time. And Najee Harris is obviously the guy that they've handed the rushing crown to as far as, you know, in preseason here. But, you know, Benny Snell has got a lot to prove, and he's capable of it. We've seen some very good things from him. He's strong. He's got good eyes, good vision. He's not afraid to take a little bit of a chance to break out on a run, whether he's head to the sidelines or cutting it back. But at the same time, he's got to consistently be productive in what he does. And part of that is in the fundamentals, in protecting the ball, always ball security.
All right, let's jump over to the offensive line if we can get a shot of them during the individual portion here of Steelers training camp, first day in pads, because, Wolf, who doesn't love to talk about the O-line more than you? Kendrick Green today, what do you need to see from him to know that he's checking the box with pads on?
I want to see his demeanor. That's what I want to see. Demeanor. You know, the meaner you get, the better you play. The fact is, there's so much that this young man has. He's got a lot of gifts, a lot of tools. You want to see if he can really get that dog out in him, because you've heard a lot about him. People have talked about his competitiveness and his ability to get after it and want to ground and pound people, which is good. You want to set the tone. You want to make that statement of who you are. We're looking at B.J. Finney. This is another guy, quality performer, who always performed at a high level whenever he was called upon to do so in his first go-round with the Steelers, and I would expect nothing less. B.J.'s a big, strong Brahma Bull type of guy. You know, Rashad Coward, you know, you want to say, does he have an opportunity to be able to break into some of the two deep? You know, you've got, right now B.J.'s going to be so he's going to be one of those guys that you want to have on game day, because he can either start or he can back up any of the inner triangle three. So he's going to be a guy that is going to be competing. You know, so the more you can do is one of those things that I think is the mantra for these offensive linemen. It's a little bit different than in my day, where, you know, not only did I play guard, I only played left guard for the first 8 or 9 years of my career. And so for these guys, it's more about being productive in a number of positions, because you have to have that position flexibility. So I'm anxious to see how they start to separate themselves. Trey Turner was such a big get, because after Dave DeCastro having to undergo surgery and being released, you sit there and you go, wow, what's that going to make it look like? And then to get a guy like Trey Turner, who's obviously a road grader and capable of Pro Bowl caliber play, you want to see him come out and, as Mike Tomlin again said, start to separate himself.
No doubt. Kevin Colbert yesterday, when asked about Trey Turner, you know, a day after Dave DeCastro was released by the team, said, you know, that was salary cap we weren't anticipating. Knowing that a guy like Trey was there, was able to fit under what we're dealing with in terms of the cap, was important to them. They are kind of racking up some Chargers players here, even going back to last season with Derek Watt. But I did see J.C. Hassenauer, who Coach Tomlin said is day-to-day. He was injured over at the South Side. He is out at practice but does not have his pads on. But going back to B.J. Finney, I can tell you, if I'm sure you spoke to him as well, just how elated he was having a chance to come back to Pittsburgh after last offseason, you know, going to Seattle, being traded to Cincy. Just things did not work out for him. And it sounded like he was happy for a new, fresh start, even though it's back somewhere familiar. But it didn't go as planned in 2020.
No, it didn't. And God's always got a plan. And here you go. He did a little circuitous type of route. All right,
yes.
Let's go with that. I asked him, I said, so how'd you like the sushi out there? He goes, what's that? You know, this kid he's just Brahma Bull tough, as I talked about. He's one of those meat and potatoes guys. He's a competitor, capable of playing both center and either of the guards, and he's capable of doing it at a moment's notice or as a 1 to 16 guy. I am sure that this is going to be competitive at the center position. Again, Kendrick Green, he was brought in for a purpose. They gave him Marquise Pouncey's jersey. That says something about his intentions. We will, you know, get a chance to see how he can represent himself. But I'm, you know, looking awfully excited when I look at it. Right now, I mean, that's big old Zach Banner.
Sure is.
That's a lot of him. That's a large man, Zach Banner, all 6'8", 300 and how many pounds, you know?
I'm not sure. I don't want to guess. I never guess people's weight.
I can only tell you this. Casey Hampton was 325 the first day. Every day he checked into camp. And every weigh-in he was 325. So we'll go with that. But the fact of the matter is, between a Trey Turner at right guard and then a Zach Banner, gadzooks, I'm thinking you can uproot some redwood trees and run that ball behind these guys with some good gap blocking, power angle blocking. It does make you sit there and kind of foam at the mouth thinking about the capabilities that they could have in rushing the ball.
Yeah, there you see JC in the back, number 60, no pads on there, as I had said. It's crazy to think back to training camp 2020 last year, Wolf, where it was Chooks and Banner fighting for that tackle spot. That was kind of the battle of last year's training camp. And then we hear Kevin Colbert say, Chooks is actually more of a left tackle, so this works out. And if they were competing for left last year, he thinks Chooks would have beat out Zach Banner.
That's a true statement, and I would never cross up on Kevin Colbert anyhow. But the fact is, when you take a look at Chooks right there, and we just saw him in a drill, he's taking his pass set, and he punches one guy, then he comes off and gets the second guy and the third guy. And this is how they develop their pass protection skills. And we got Kendrick Green coming up now. It's going to be interesting to see how he sets. But this is what, for the offensive lineman, this is how you develop that ability to punch and punch again. And right here you can see that's a nice punch. See the hands. All right, you got to have some vicious pop in your hands. That's a nice set by Kendrick Green. Obviously, you want to make sure he's got to be accurate with the snap first, but to come off and be able to punch like that. And that would be, I would tell you right now, Missy, if you ever saw Larry Brown, Tunch Ilkin, John Kolb, those guys were punchers extraordinaire, because that was really when the punch was born back in the early 80s. Right here, that's great hands by Trey Turner.
All right, we'll get a chance to see them in just a little bit whenever they start the competition period. Let's jump over, if we can, to the Steelers secondary. I can see Mike Tomlin down on the field, kind of huddling them up. As secondary coach at heart, loves the defense. What do you think the message is to those guys today?
Well, I think right now the message is real simply, let's get our feet wet. Let's, again, get out here and compete and see who starts to rise up above. Cam Sutton's got a lot on his plate. I'm sure that the coaches would really like to see Cam take over that cornerback position and not have to role play in between the nickelback and the outside. Now, going in and out, I think would weaken Cam Sutton. I'm hoping that Cam is able to just stay out there, because one thing that I go back to Tunch Ilkin. He would go from right tackle, right guard, center, left guard, left tackle, all through the positions on the offensive line. But when he got good was when he was about to break into the starting lineup, and Ron Blackledge, our line coach, said, "What can I do to make you better?" And Tunch said, real simple, leave me in one position. And that's what I think for Cam Sutton. If we can leave him in one position, he's going to grow at a rate that I think is just going to excel, and he's going to be very, very competitive, very, very good, and be a complete starter.
Arthur Millette spoke after practice yesterday. He said he knew Cam Sutton for a number of years, also knew Eric Ebron. They crossed paths in Indy. But he said, Cam Sutton is that Swiss Army knife, and that has really been his role with the Steelers since he was drafted out of Tennessee. He was part of the TJ Watt, James Conner, Juju Smith-Schuster draft class, and sometimes I think is forgotten that he is part of it, but you saw what a priority he was for the Steelers this offseason, Wolf. And, going back to what Prisuta said, Coach Tomlin was asked about him and Chase Claypool getting into it a little bit yesterday at practice. I think, Coach is probably going to make sure that matchup happens at some point today, knowing the pads are on, and that is something that helps bring energy to the group, creates healthy competition, and those are two guys that you do want to see make an improvement, even though what they did in 2020. Everyone can always get better. There's
no question about it. Look, when I realized I was starting to get better was when Joe Green didn't pile drive me so easily anymore. You learn to get better by facing the best, and it's iron sharpening iron, as Mike Tomlin talked about yesterday, and it's the continuance of that. I talked about it on the show today, back in 1982 when Tunch became a starter, Tunch Ilkin that is. That same year, a young free agent, Keith Willis, was brought in. Keith Willis and Tunch, they just went at it 3 times a week. It was just, they just played against each other. No quarter asked, no quarter given. They competed hard against each other. They pushed each other to be their very best. And you know what? A decade or more later, when they both left the Steelers, Keith was the all-time, at that time, sack leader of the Steelers, and Tunch was a 2-time Pro Bowler. That's what iron sharpening iron does for you.
And that is certainly a Tomlinism that we hear Coach say a lot, and his players. It's the trickle-down effect, knowing that they are listening to him. All right, Wolf, players are starting. I heard the horn. Ooh. They're starting to get themselves ready to go. Competition period is here. Unfortunately, we cannot show this to you guys, but don't worry. Bob Labriola is paying close attention. He will be joining me for the Steelers wrap-up show to break it all down for you. Plus, we'll have Coach Tomlin and another special guest as well. So we'll see everybody after practice. Thanks so much for joining us here today on Training Camp Live, presented by FedEx.